Ένα ποτάμι που κυλάει, ποτάμι αιώνιο τέλειωτο, είναι ο λαός σου που περνάει την έρημο. Κάθε στιγμή και κάθε ώρα, στρατιές, ιερές οι μαρτύρες, κι όλο σημώνουμε τη χώρα της χάριτος. Κι είσαι Χριστέ μου εσύ βροχή και εμείς σταγόνες πάνω στη γη. Πάρε τις στάλες, φάντες πηγή, καν το ποτάμι μεγάλο βαθύ. Τα χέρια που είναι υψωμένα, τα χέρια που προσεύχονται, καν τα ενωμένα αγιοκέρια στον ουρανό. Κάνε πολύ να γίνουμε ένα, το ενθρονούνται στην ψυχή, όρημα στάχια ζυμωμένα, ψωμί ιερό. Μία η αλήθεια, μία φωτιά, ένα το πνεύμα, μία η καρδιά, ένα τραπέζι, μία χαρά, κι όλοι οι αδέλφια στη Θεία Αγκαλιά.
Since then, no prophet has risen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, who did all those signs and wonders the Lord sent him to do in Egypt, to Pharaoh and to all his officials and to his whole land. For no one has ever shown the mighty power or performed the awesome deeds that Moses did in the sight of all Israel. These are the words written in the Bible following the death of the great prophet Moses. Often seen as one of the most influential figures in the Old Testament, it is easy to remember Moses only by his major events, such as freeing the Israelites from Egypt or receiving the Ten Commandments. And oftentimes we forget that behind these acts was a simple, God-loving, prayerful, and humble prophet who would communicate with God face to face. So today we are going to take a closer look at the life of Moses and try to go a bit behind the scenes into his character. Our story begins in the land of Egypt. The Egyptians formed a powerful nation in the land. Joseph and his brothers had entered a while ago, and the Israelites had now started to grow in number and influence. Worried that the Israelites would grow more powerful than himself, Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, took charge to enslave them. He forced them to work in hard labours in the deadly heat, often hungry and thirsty. But he was also scared that future generations would be born, that they would be raised and would overthrow him. And so Pharaoh also ordered that all male children be killed. Moses' mother heard this and attempted to hide her baby boy for 3 months. But, fearing that she would not be able to hide him much longer, she sent him adrift in a basket along the river Nile, hoping that the power of God would save him. Moses floated down the river to where the Pharaoh's daughter was bathing. She rescued him and named him Moses, which means to be drawn out. She raised him as a son, and he grew up in the Egyptian palace. However, Moses' mother also saw this and offered to help raise the baby boy. In this way, Moses grew up as not only an Egyptian, but also remembering his Hebrew heritage. One day, as he was walking around, he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave so badly that he had to step in to defend the man. A short fight began, and during this fight, Moses ended up killing the Egyptian. Knowing that the people had seen him and would start to chase him, Moses fled the country into the desert. And it was here in the desert, away from the hustle of the city, that Moses further developed in his prayer. He lived as a simple shepherd, content with the simplicities of life. One day, he saw a group of bandits attacking a group of young women in the area. He immediately stepped in, defending them and chasing the bandits away. The women were daughters of a high priest, one of whom, Zipporah, later became his wife. And here in the desert, he lived as a simple shepherd for 40 years. One day, he saw a burning bush that didn't seem to be consumed by fire. He heard the voice of God with a message asking him to save the people who were enslaved in Egypt and lead them to the promised land. At first, Moses refused God and asked him to send someone else. But God insisted that he would have his brother with him as well as the grace of God. Moses returned back to Egypt and asked Pharaoh to free the slaves. However, Pharaoh was not willing to do so, and so God sent 10 plagues to the land of Egypt. The first was turning water into blood. Then came plagues of frogs, lice, flies, and locusts. Following this was the death of livestock, and then boils and hail. But it was the 10th plague, the one that killed all firstborn sons, including Pharaoh's, that eventually made him give up his slaves. The Israelites all left Egypt, and taking what they could hold, they ran. But Pharaoh was still angered that he just let them all leave and sent a large army after them that chased them all the way to the sea. When the Israelites met the Red Sea, they realized that they were trapped, that there was nowhere else for them to go, that they could not return back, nor could they go forward. God told Moses to lift up his staff, and when he did so, the Red Sea parted to let them through. And after they had finished passing through the waters, the sea closed in and killed the Egyptian army that had been following them. Now, once again, Moses finds himself in a desert. But this time, instead of being alone, he is with tens of thousands of Israelites who he has to care for. And having no food, he turned in prayer to God, who provided them with sweet bread and meat to eat. And when they needed water, Moses would pray, and a rock would begin to flow with water. The people would often complain to Moses, and he would listen to them and teach them to trust in God. After 3 months of traveling, they reached the foot of Mount Sinai, where God asked Moses to meet him at the top. After 40 days on the mountain, Moses received the 10 Commandments, which describe how to live our lives, our relationship with God, and how to treat one another. These laws became a prized possession for the Israelites and are kept by Christians to this day. Moses then spent another 40 years in the desert until finally reaching the Promised Land. However, he was not able to enter the Promised Land, but instead died just outside at the age of 120. He had spent 40 years in Egypt as a prince, 40 years in Midian as a shepherd, and 40 years in the desert as a leader.